Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, Sow, Grow, Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of Sow, Grow, Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. This is your host, Haley Cooper, and I am so excited to have Kel Haney back on the podcast. She is just an amazing human, and I love chatting with her. And also, we're going to dive into the more of her work and what she offers for her clients, and how you can take this back into your fundraising efforts, the power of picking up the phone to grow mid-level donors. She is a fundraising expert who knows firsthand how simple a 5-minute conversation can transform donor relationships and significantly boost engagement. So if you're ready to learn how to pick up the phone and watch your donor engagement up level, join us in this conversation. Welcome, Kel.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Haley. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you some more. I love our conversations as well. So glad to be back.
And yes, I don't remember what episode it was, but you can always go back to listen. It's a more high-level overview of fundraising. And now we're diving into some of the topics that we talked about on that podcast. So I'm excited. So obviously, you've been in fundraising. You were in theater for a long time. Mm-hmm. How did you learn this strategy or this framework of picking up the phone, and why is it so powerful?
Well, I got into fundraising because, as you mentioned, I was in theater and I needed to do something to supplement my income as a theater director. So I had been working with Manhattan Theater Club in New York City. I love that theater. I wanted to run that theater someday. So I started fundraising over the phone for them to supplement my income. And I didn't have a background in sales. I didn't have a background in fundraising, but I personally raised something like $6 million in less than 8 years, all in gifts of $2,000 and under. And it was because I was talking about my favorite thing, connecting with people. And so what I've done is basically my 5-minute fundraising ask framework. I've reversed engineered why I was able to do that so successfully and so comfortably. And frankly, like it was super rewarding to connect with people in that way. So I've reverse engineered why that worked for me into a very simple to execute methodology that anybody can pick up the phone and just whatever comfort level they have with phone calls, just get started.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, and you focus a lot on mid-level donors, and I think people like skip over that. It goes straight to major gift donors.
Yes.
So why focus on those mid-level donors, and what are the benefits, for lack of a better term, of really having those conversations at all levels of giving?
Yeah, absolutely. These phone calls do work for all levels of giving. I find that it's a sweet spot for mid-level because I feel like mid-level needs something that's specifically for them. So obviously, most organizations, all organizations, don't have the time, energy, and resources to put into mid-level the way they do to major gifts. Most organizations understand that degree of cultivation that's necessary for major gifts. You and I have so many amazing colleagues that are so great when it comes to the tech and the segmentation for grassroots to really make sure that they're getting personal touch points that are automated. But mid-level needs something else. They need something in addition to like really well-crafted emails and really well-segmented ways of communication. They need some voice-to-voice communication. So that's where I think 5-minute fundraising phone calls works really well for mid-level. I think it is a really strong return on investment specifically for being on mid-level. So yes, it takes some time. It takes some time to sit down and make some phone calls. I recommend an hour or 2 hours a week at minimum, but that return on investment when it comes to mid-level is really significant.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if someone's listening to this and they're like, how do I discover who my mid-level donors are? Like, where do you start with that?
Sure. So I find that every different not-for-profit has a different idea of what mid-level should be. Our colleague, Brooke Ritchie-Babbage, has, I don't remember it at the moment, but a really good actual like mathematical equation. So we could always check in with her about that. It tends to be a 4-digit gift is what I tend to see, is somewhere between 1,000 and just under 10,000. Some of my clients are really specific and are saying that's specifically 2,500 to 5,000. So I think it really depends on what are you looking at right now and how many donors do you have in each of those categories is a good way to figure out what feels like mid-level to you. And to identify who's a good candidate to be mid-level, I would say obviously anyone whose giving level is close to being like who's a grassroots person, but who's giving in the high 3 digits. That's a good place to start. I also, most of my clients, I recommend some wealth engine donor research as well, just to get a sense, because quite frequently you've got people in your grassroots level who do have the capacity, the propensity, the affinity to give at a higher level. And we just may not have asked them and started to develop that relationship yet.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And yeah, I think that affinity and capacity part is key as well. Like people have to be introduced and understand your organization, but also have the capacity to give as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is just about figuring out, just like in any of our regular interactions in the day, where is there a spark? So I also think it's not just about obviously finding the people in your community who have deep pockets. It's about finding the people who potentially have the capacity, but who may actually have an interest in your organization as well. Everybody wants to have conversations that are specifically catered to them as possible. So figure out where those connective tissues can lie and start from there.
You mentioned a spark, right? Like that like aha moment where people want to say yes to give to the organization. Yes. So how can these 5-minute conversations that you have, the framework that you've coined, help unlock that spark?
Sure. So what I do is I say that I recommend that in that 5-minute phone call, you have 4 tent poles. So basically those are like 4 moments that you're going to reach in that call. So I don't recommend working with a script. I like to say that scripts are for actors. They're not for fundraisers or for not-for-profit leaders. So you've got 4 tent poles is what I recommend. So these are going to be 4 moments that you're just going to reach that are going to hold up the tent that is this fundraising conversation that you're having. Part of that is that we want to also really make sure that each of these calls is about building a larger relationship. So I always say focus on the forest that is the relationship building, not the tree that is this particular phone call. So first and foremost, I say, and I know a lot of your listeners are people who are running organizations who are like very type A, like very much high achieving folks. Do what you can to take the pressure off of yourself of what are you going to accomplish in this call. And instead, it really is about relationship building. So starting from there. In the first 15 seconds, that's the first tent pole. This is going to be a moment, and I will try to not get too granular on you right now, Haley, but what I would say is that in that first 15 seconds, you really want to front load with information. So as opposed to, it's different being on the phone than it is in person with someone. It's different than an email. And so in that first 15 seconds, we have a lot of work to do to get the person on the other end to realize that they're talking to somebody who is directly connected to this organization. They're not talking to a telemarketer. They're not talking to a scammer. They're not talking to an AI bot. They're actually talking to this human being who works directly with this organization. So I really recommend in that first 15 seconds, addressing the person by name. If I were calling you, I'd say, "Hi, Haley, my name is Kel. I'm the executive director of Organization X. You were so lovely. You did a donation of $1,000 this time last year. We so appreciate that support. Would love to get you more involved. We're actually working on our late winter campaign at the moment. But first and foremost, it looks like that gift last year was your first donation to the org. And I'm so embarrassed. I don't have any other information about you and how you got involved. I'd love to know how you found us in the first place and what it was that inspired you to donate." So I just said a lot in 15 seconds, but I got across who I was. And I think this is really important for your listeners. Sharing your title at the organization is truly paramount to building that relationship. Like, we all take for granted who we are and what labels, what titles we have, but that means a lot to the people that we're calling. So I said who I was. I said what my title was. I also jogged their memory of what their connection was to us through a moment of gratitude. And the more specific you can be is great. Some people have in their head the whole list of every single organization they donate, how much they donate, when they donated. Some people do not remember at all. So always erring by thanking them and also sharing what they've done so far is a really great place to get started.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location, so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like there's probably like some neuroscience behind that too, right? Like, no one's going to hang up the phone. Like, if you just went straight to the question, right? They'd be like, what are you? Like, I don't even know you, but you're thanking them, you're acknowledging them so that they feel seen. And they're like, oh, yes, they remember that good feeling of when they gave that gift, right? And then you're like,
Yes,
now I want to focus on you and get to know you.
exactly. And also I mentioned recommend in that first 15 seconds saying, we'd love to get you more involved. So if there is going to be an active ask or we're going to invite them to an event or something, like, I'm mentioning that right away. So there's no bait and switch of, oh, you're asking me this curious question, but you're just asking me for money. And so the idea is to say, well, yes, obviously we're a not-for-profit. We would love for you to donate. Again, that'd be great. But I also truly am leading with curiosity. I'd love to know a little bit more about what got you involved in the first place, what's keeping you involved. Are you looking at the emails we're sending out? Do you know that we have this in-person event coming up on March 16th? We'd love for you to attend. It's really about getting as specific as possible, like in every moment of the call. That's truly, no, I genuinely care about you, genuinely care about how you're connected to this organization. And the money always follows that. So it's really about focusing on relationship, not the outcome.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like I love the idea of leading with curiosity because I feel like oftentimes we get nervous with picking up the phone and then we want to, or like a donor meeting and then we want to leave with an agenda because we want that outcome. So how do you take that mindset out of those phone calls of, obviously you have to meet goals within your organization, but how do you coach your clients to really lead with that curiosity?
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is about getting really clear for each of us about what our own whys are and how to share those whys with others and to be excited about that and to be able to say, I also think like when I really get down to why I do what I do and why do I do this, and it's because I want to build micro connections between people. So the whole idea is particularly with these calls is that I want both my clients and also the community members that they're calling. I want each person to hang up the phone and feel better than they did when they picked up the phone. And that like they actually we're wired as humans, again, to the neuroscience of it, we're wired as humans to connect with one another. And so as we go into grocery stores and we're like checking ourselves out now and everything is about less and less contact, so much more working from home, it really is a moment to connect with another person. So I really am trying to encourage just the trust that if what we are doing is we are leading with our own authentic whys and a true curiosity towards the other person, the money will follow. And also to be really frank about why it's important and why it's important now, and to really make sure we're making space to hear from the other person. And for me, that's always so fun. Like, I love that. I love the idea of making an ask and then asking, what's your initial thought on that? I'm so curious. Is that within the realm of possibility? Like, I truly am curious to hear what the other person has to say, as opposed to thinking about it as a binary. Is it a yes or a no? Because as we all know, anyone who's made any kind of ask, it is frequently not as cut and dry as, is it a yes or no? If it is, great. If it's a yes, great. Let's go with that yes. But if it's a no, it's really okay to tease out, why is that a no? And is that a no for today? Is that a no for forever? Is that a no because every time that person gets a thank you letter, their partner's name is spelled wrong? There's so many reasons why a no could be happening. So just to learn a little bit more and to understand there's a gift in a no as well, of why is it that they're saying no? And thank you for being so candid. Thank you for being so straightforward, and then asking some follow-up questions.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And a lot of nonprofits that I work with struggle with the follow-up of maybe we're recording in February, but they received year-end gifts, or they just ran a fundraising campaign. And so they did all this hard work to pick up or send an appeal, ask for donations, and then the follow-up is hard to do, or for whatever reason. So how do you coach your clients to, they get all this courage to pick up the phone, they're able to make the ask, maybe they get the yes or the not today, but in the future. How do you coach them to follow up, to continue to engage those individuals?
Sure. And the follow-up actually starts in that last phone call. So the fourth tent pole is obviously, I call it the wrap up. And so that's a moment then, obviously, if that person is donating in the moment and there's some specific details to go through, that's great. And gratitude for staying on the call. But the other thought is, when will they next hear from the organization? So that is both to set up the community member to know when that contact is going to happen, but also accountability on the individual and on the organization's part. So whether that is, let me just make sure I've got the right email address for you, and make sure you're getting our newsletter. Hopefully most of your listeners do have automated at least an email thank you that has all of the tax information for folks. So that's taken care of. But it's really in that call setting up when's the next time that they're going to hear from us. And so that might be like a maybe, not for now. If that's the case, then I would say if it was a year end, to say, totally hear you. Thank you for being so straightforward. I know I'm really making it an effort to, in 2025, make these phone calls. So I'll tell you what, I will give you a call sometime Valentine's Day or towards the end of March. And then making sure that's going into our system so that we're giving that person a phone call in that moment. So yeah, it starts in that call. Also, it's never too late, frankly. So if your listeners are sitting on that list of people who they wanted to make thank you calls to for their end of 2024 donations, what you really need to do is just block out the time. Like, that always has to happen. I coach clients on that constantly, because making the phone calls is the thing that comes off of your list. It is so much easier to just sit at our computers and respond to a bunch of emails. But that idea of getting vulnerable and pick up the phone, it's the thing that even people who like to do this will still avoid it at all costs. So I recommend truly figuring out, some people are most comfortable making these calls on moments that they're working from home. Some people like to do it when it's an office full of people. Some people like to pace around an office when no one else is there. Figure out what time of the week, when is best within your workflow to just schedule in that you're going to make these calls. And if you're feeling like embarrassed, it's too late to make that phone call, you can start with that on the thank you of me calling you and saying, Haley, I'm so sorry this hasn't happened sooner. It's truly keeping me up at night that I haven't been able to make the time to make these thank you calls. But that gift you made back in December of $1,000 was so impactful for our organization. And in this moment, I just wanted to call you and say thanks and check in and to see how you're doing in this world, in this life that we're in right now. So I will say the one thing I do recommend to never say on thank you calls is, quote unquote, don't worry, I'm not asking you for money. Because if you're following my methodology, you will be calling them in a different moment with an active ask. So you're not setting yourself or the rest of the organization up well if the first thing you say is, don't worry, I'm not calling to ask you for money. That's setting up a stigma. That's a bad thing and something we shouldn't be doing. So I recommend not ever using that phrase. You can say, I'm calling you at the moment purely to say thank you and check in with you. That gets across the same point without having to do anything that stigmatizes an ask that might be coming down later this year.
Yeah, that's good. And I think I saw you say something on LinkedIn the other day about the power of voicemails. I think people are like, do I leave a voicemail? I think you also mentioned something about I don't know if it was an ask on a voicemail, but can you dive more into if someone doesn't answer? What do you do? What kind of voicemail do you leave to help have them call you back?
If somebody doesn't pick up the phone and you have a strong connection, as in this is someone who has donated to your organization or participated in the past few years, absolutely leave a voicemail, because otherwise I think you look like a telemarketer and you leave that thread open of, well, why did that person call me? I think the thing to think about with voicemails is they're akin to a handwritten note on a letter appeal. It's just an extra little personal touch. So it's very similar to what I train in that 5-minute phone call. You're going to leave a lot of information on that phone call. If it is an active ask moment, if it's a thank you, it can be purely a thank you. I would have mentioned the amount. I would mention when they gave. I would maybe mention some impact or a little success nugget that you have to share with them. And be like, I'd love to have more of a conversation and hear like why you decided to get involved if they're a new donor, or what is it that keeps you involved. Feel free to give me a call back here if you'd like. And no matter what, I'd say otherwise, we'll keep you on the mailing list and either myself or someone else from the org will be checking in later in the year. So you always want to let them know they're going to continue to hear from you. In terms of, I think what you're referring to is that a few weeks ago on LinkedIn, I posted about a client of mine that got a check in the mail out of nowhere for $18,000 in the first week in January. And that was coming from someone who hadn't donated in the past couple of years. Their last donation was $5,000. They did have a connection to the organization. They've been on a board of a similar organization recently, and the fundraiser had left a call, and it was during the giving season, saying at the moment that we were $18,000 away from our goal at the moment. I believe it was a $5,000 gift, so I'm assuming she asked for probably $7,500. I usually recommend just blanketly a 50% increase unless there's some other information we know. That's my standard recommendation. So I believe that person probably asked for $7,500 on the call, said how you could give, but that donor heard the message and heard that we were $18,000 away from our goal and decided to just match it. So they didn't call us back. They didn't email us back. Along with a voicemail, I recommend, if it's an active ask moment, to also send an email and be like, I'll also put this all in an email so you can see it in an email. But that was actually an $18,000 voicemail. It's pretty wild.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And I see stories like that all the time. They're usually not at that scale, but that happens a lot when we can be as specific with and like directive with our asks over voicemails. Also, the fact that now, at least my phone company does a transcription of voicemails. It's just yet another way to be able to see that someone's calling. So I always say, leave the voicemail, also put all the information in an email, and it works great. Never would have thought that would be the case when I started this 20 years ago, but we continue to live so much of our lives on these cell phones and need cell phones to talk to doctors, talk to lawyers, talk to insurance companies. Like, phone calls continue to be a real part of our lives. So as long as they are, I think it's a great way to continue to connect with our community as fundraisers.
Yeah, I think that's so important to be like clear and direct on the ask, because if you're vague and like a little hesitant, right, people are going to sense that and they're like, what do you actually want me to do? So I think what you said about being like very clear and direct on what you want that person to do for your organization is really important to see that outcome that they got, which was that $18,000 gift. Well, obviously, you're saying we're living on our phone, and I know a lot of CRM companies now have the power of text messaging. How do you, if at all, recommend people use the different mediums of communication for those mid-level donors?
Yeah, I think I'm not an expert when it comes to emails or text, but what I will say is I recommend all of that a little bit more for grassroots levels. So where we're just getting smaller gifts, where we're building monthly givers, or we're building gifts that are through the year not going to add up to any more than $1,000. I feel like texts are fine. But I do think it's really important that everything can be as personal as possible. And I would also be careful of, if you want to also call them, what you're putting in your text and what you're putting in your emails. Because if you're sending out an email survey, or you're sending an email thank you, and then you have somebody calling and asking for the same information, like, that's not a great way to continue the relationship. So I frequently recommend with clients, if they do have some of that text messaging capability happening at the organization, to not use that for mid-level, to save that for grassroots level, and just be like, let's pick up the phone and call those folks. Also, we want to be careful about, you want to all gather as much information as possible, contact information. So what I see happens with a lot of these tech companies, they're so focused, especially when it comes to online giving, of making it as seamless as possible and saying, hey, we're cutting down this time and showing the data. But what I actually find is that most people, their information automatically populates. If I have to purchase something on the internet, I'm used to the fact that they're going to have my email, they're going to have my address, they're going to have my phone number, to just make that all standard with any kind of gift. Because that's the other thing that happens, is someone will make a gift and they'll make it over the text, or they'll do it online, on their laptop, in a way that they're like, oh, this is so great, this is so simple. But they don't always know that we don't have their information. So then they're surprised when they don't hear from us. So if I see something, I have a client that for years had a fundraiser that had a component over YouTube, and there was an active ask. But because people were giving over YouTube, we did not have the capacity to capture any of their information. So someone could have made $1,000 gift because they watched this gala performance on YouTube, and we don't have their information to even say thank you. And they're not remembering that we didn't get their information. So all they remember is that, hey, I made that gift to organization X and I never heard back from them. So it's really important to capture contact information. I think that's more important than the gift itself.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfield is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today.
I definitely agree, because then you can do that effective follow-up and stewardship for the donor.
Exactly.
For organizations looking to implement this strategy, where should they start?
Sure. So I would start by, you need to have a strategy of who are you calling and why. So I frequently come into organizations that might not even know what their goals are for the fiscal year. And if they do, they may not have decided, given their past results, of how to divide up that month by month. So I'm always just trying to figure out, how can we go ahead and how can we divide up this larger goal that we have into more manageable bites? And so to figure that out, I'm going to look back at the data of the last couple of years of how much came in on the various levels and how much came in on the various levels in particular months, and sometimes even as granular as particular weeks of the year, to just figure out how much do we actually need to raise to stay on target in this particular month. It's going to start with figuring out goals, and figuring out goals not just for fundraising in general, but divide that up by individual giving, and then divide that up by individual giving between, I would say, the three categories of grassroots, mid-level, and major gifts, of how much needs to come in from each level. Then what I'm going to recommend is that we look at who are the folks who are already at those levels or who we feel could move into those levels. And then we get really strategic about who are we actually calling, when, and why. And different times of the year mean different things. So this might be a moment that your organization is still in thank you call mode. That's great and awesome. Here's the deal. Anybody can make thank you calls for your organization. And frankly, if you ask me, the whole organization should. Like I said in the last time I was on your podcast, Haley, that I think every person who works at an organization should be an ambassador for the organization. This is a great way to do that. It's a great way to get everybody at your organization connected to their own whys and get them comfortable sharing their whys, getting them feeling excited and inspired hearing the whys of other people in their community and kind. So this time of year, it's a great time to have everybody making thank you calls. So there's that as a possibility. I would recommend, as you're looking at your full year strategy, obviously Giving Tuesday and year end. Giving Tuesday is here to stay. I think that is useful for any size organization, any marketing budget size, if you're specific and strategic about who are you calling. So, you're just going to look at when are the moments in the year. I would recommend Giving Tuesday through end of calendar year is one moment for really active asks over the phone. And I'd look for another time of the year for that. So maybe your fiscal year is actually 6/30. You can actually build a whole spring campaign around when your fiscal year ends, or when do you have an event following up to that event? Is that happening in the spring? Is there something? I'm in conversation. I have a colleague talking about a library day that happens in Canada, and they're a library, and that's beginning of April. So to say, okay, so what if we craft an event and the kickoff is Library Day, just like Giving Tuesday is, and you're going into another 6 weeks of campaign that's inspired by Library Day. So yeah, that's what I'd say to start.
Yeah, that's so good to segment out the donors. And I think it's almost, correct me if I'm wrong, like a gift range chart. And there's
100%.
free tools online. And we can also link to one in the show note where you can see at each level how many prospects you need to be able to meet those goals and to meet your fundraising goal. And I also like this idea because I think at least a lot of nonprofits I've worked with are we only ask at year end, but this is your permission that you can ask more than once if you are strategic about it and do it in a way that people feel good about it, right? And and in between those asks, they've been communicated with and shown the impact of their gifts.
Exactly. And I think it's important, again, you can take the gala out of theater, but you can't take theater out of the gal. I'm all about crafting events. We all love events. So figure out when is that other moment in your, like I already said, in your calendar year that you can craft an event that you could also use as a very active ask moment. I find that 2 touch points a year specifically for asks, in addition to all the other stewardship, work extremely well.
Well, If someone, as they're starting on this strategy, what are some of the measurements and evaluations that you use to track the success of these 5-minute phone conversations?
Yeah, I keep it really simple on my end, frankly. Like we come up with, like we said, like segmenting out how much are we trying to raise in this particular year, in this particular month, like from this particular segment in this month. So we start there. And that's all based on what have we seen happen in the last couple of years, I'd say. So obviously most organizations are always looking to increase. I think a 20% increase is a really healthy place to be going for. So I'm truly looking at what are we bringing in month to month in terms of like specifically what's happening on those calls. So I keep the metrics on my end like very simple to just say, what are we seeing happen on these particular calls, and really just keeping track of any gift that in any way may have been influenced by a phone call. So it's just about in the CRM tracking that phone calls are happening. Sometimes what I see happens, see organizations, I think, getting a little too in the weeds about how exactly did this gift come in. Well, did this gift come in because this person made a call 2 months ago? Or was it because they've gotten 3 emails since then? Or was it the letter appeal? And as I think anyone who's been doing this long, as you and I have, know that it really is a multi-pronged, multi-level approach. And so when this is all working really well, it's not, and I'll be very clear, making these phone calls is not the silver bullet. It is not like the end all be all. Like this has to be incorporated with all of your other cadence of communication in order for this to work. And it does cost more. I think that's really important in terms of the sweat equity that goes into these calls. And that's why I specifically target it towards mid-level. And that is something to really watch. But I've also seen amazing things happen. I've watched people become board members within the year of their first phone call. So there really is a really strong return on investment on this, but we need to be strategic about it.
Yeah, and I like that you said, keep it simple. Don't really overthink it.
Yeah. How much time are you spending? Exactly. How much time are you spending? And are we actually reaching those goals? But I do think, and it's kind of amazing to me, how many organizations are not really clear about how much they're trying to raise and how much they're trying to raise month to month. And I would also say all that on the call. I have a client who is a one-person fundraising department, and she was trying to raise an amount that felt wild to her. I think it was like $400,000 total by the end of the year just by herself. But we broke it up month to month. And so she would get on the calls and say, I'm trying to raise $40,000 this month. I've just started and we know where we are in the month. And so sometimes it would be trying to raise $40,000 this month. I have to say, like, February is slow. I've only got 10,000 in so far, but I'm really hopeful for what I can do in the next 8 days. Like, people want to help people. They want to help particular folks. And I think we're afraid to be vulnerable in that way. But the more that we're actually sharing, no, this is actually, I am the only fundraiser at this organization. And this is how much I'm personally trying to help them raise this month, and sharing that, and then sharing those updates. People love those updates, and they love it. It's like getting their get it done dopamine pumping as well, to be able to say, okay, I did it. Haley called me and she said she was $10,000 away. I can't do 10,000, but I could do 5 this year, which is more than the 4 I did last year. So I got her halfway to what she needs. And hang up the phone. They're like, good luck with that last 5,000. I'll be thinking of you. And then you could always keep track of those people who really care, and then write them a little thank you and be like, I did it. So people love that. So really, the more we can call them into the specific amounts that we're trying to raise, helps a heck of a lot too.
Okay, I feel like that's a whole nother conversation, because I have some nonprofits that are like, we need to raise like 200,000 extra. And I'm like, but why? Be clear what you said, going back to the why. Like, why is raising that much money important? What won't happen for the communities you serve if you do not raise that much money? It's not a nice to have. If you say it's a nice to have, 200,000 extra dollars, people are going to feel that, and they're going to be like, well, why should I give to you? But if you have that clear, this is why we need this money to make this transformation, people are going to want to give.
Totally. And I think some of it, what we're running into, at least with a bunch of performing arts organizations that I work with, is they're looking at sustainability campaigns. And so again, that's okay. Just be really specific about why, and what does that impact mean on the day-to-day basis if we actually have more solid ground to stand on. So I think a lot of the times we refer to it as nice to have, but if we really investigate that with the leaders at an organization, turns out that's truly more about longer term financial security. And I think that is totally a fine thing to talk about, but like we actually have to talk about it and get specific.
Definitely. Well, Kel, if people want to follow you and learn more about the work that you do, where can they find you?
Sure. So Kel Haney, I love being on LinkedIn. So you can find me by my name on LinkedIn. You can also hop on my website, kelhaney.com. I've got 2 free resources on there. One is about specifically mid-levels, and the other is 8 phrases not to use when fundraising. So you can sign up for those there. The 2 main ways that people work with me is either that I am training and coaching internal teams on mid-level and specifically on these 5-minute phone calls. The other thing that I do is I help organizations put together what I call an outbound fundraising campaign. And so that is hiring very part-time contractors to make these calls. And those are always folks who are specifically passionate about the organization as opposed to being career telemarketers. So 2 different ways to work with me.
Well, now more than ever, it is important to pick up the phone and talk to your donors. So thank you so much, Kel, for this inspiring conversation. I have truly learned a lot. We will link to all the resources in the show notes. And it's such a joy to chat with you.
I feel the same way. Haley, thanks for having me. Good to talk to you.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.